being alive to see another day. I'd like to welcome you to the Volcano Shelton show. Volcano Shelton here with you this evening. We come your way once a week, and it's on Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is 11 p.m. in Liberia. And I'd like to say thank you if you're there right now to help me. Let's share the show because tonight is going to be a great conversation. This is about uh, imparting knowledge and sharing, what we think necessary for you, our folks, to understand rather than just, continue to speculate. Sometimes it's about bringing you to understand what is obtaining in your country, what you need to know, because everything is not the fact. Everything is not truth. It's all about what people say. And sometimes it's good to kind of analyze it. It's good to check it, facts check it, and be sure. So our concentration here tonight is on this topic. If you're looking here, what are the things that President Boakar's administration is doing so wrong that many people are complaining every day? What are those things that the current president of the Republic of Liberia, Joseph Boakai, is doing, his administration is doing so wrong that people are complaining every day? So that's what we'll be talking about here tonight. We'll look at some critical pieces regarding these things. Uh, Concentrated in this conversation tonight would be the demolition exercise, that has been ongoing. We're going to look at traffic restructuring for safety and image building. We're going to look at the lack of private sector jobs. We're going to look at the removal of petty traders, street merchants, people who are building shacks and stuff all along the sidewalk and impeding pedestrian movements. We're going to look at the lack of private sector jobs. As I said, we're going to look at um, the lack of visible plans to address the cost of living in the country, the slow pace against the fight of corruption, if that what you think, and some communication issues, just a whole lot of thought of things that have been on the thought process of people that they continue to talk about. So I just want to say, help me share the program here tonight. I usually have to do this concomitantly with going live. So I want you to please join me and help me, because usually sometimes folks will have somebody in the background to do it for them. But, I'm just my one man army. So how do I put it? I got to keep doing it myself. And so I would appreciate if you can kind of help me distribute it to your friends, your pages, wherever you have connection to, so that we can hold a good conversation tonight. I'm hoping that everything is going well. So just let me know if we're not having, the last time I was here, we had a little problem with the connection at some point in the program. It fell apart, and I don't know why that happened, but it's my prayer that that doesn't happen again. And so, if you can just help me share the show, I'd like to also know if there's anything that you observe. To just hit the chat button and let me know. Say that to me so I can, if able to address it quickly, I'll be able to do that. So again, thank you so much. This show comes on Thursday, and then we have her sister program, the Issues Room, that we run on Tuesday. So once a week for both programs, but the Issues Room is on Tuesday, and this show, as I said, comes on every Thursday. I had to scale back because this kind of stuff is a lot of work, and so you want to make sure that you have the time to do all of this. And indeed, um, it can be very time consuming, especially for professional people like us, who put in all the energy and time to make sure that the research is done, that we're doing what we're supposed to do to bring the information as required so that it doesn't come ordinary. I believe in, putting more into it. And so that is why we have committed to doing it the right way. So again, thank you. Again, thank you so much. We appreciate your viewership. We appreciate you joining us here tonight. Um, Help me share the link, invite others, and I'm trying to do the same before I start the conversation. Um, so just give me a few minutes. Let me do this quickly, and we can kick this ball rolling. So, as I said, what I want to talk about tonight, as you and I know, is the situation in the country. You have a president who came to power in 2023, and actually, elections was 2023, and he came to power in 2024, and we're now nearly 2.5 years since this government took power, and we see a lot of critics, oppositions, and people are just complaining. And what is intriguing is that these very people were once in power. These very people are anticipating coming to power. But what is it that this government is doing so wrong? So let me just quickly recognize a few text messages here that I see. Raymond Clark, thank you for coming. Emmanuel Jackson, thank you for coming. You're going to be a great show. I expect you to call in here tonight. Yeah, thank you. Thank you guys for coming. But some of the things I mentioned, as you can see, right? I talked about the demolition exercise, but just before I go into that, um, many Liberians who criticize President Joseph Boaga and his administration rather tend to be focused on more of the recurring issues, right? These complaints are from the opposition, as I said, civil society groups, the activists, journalists, and even ordinary citizens. Although supporters of the Unity Party government argue that reforms are still underway. Remember, let me lay the cards on the table. Our country changed since 1980. We had a semblance of stability between 1980 and 1990. When I say semblance of stability, I mean that our country did not go into chaos. There were issues, there were coup plots, there were executions, there were things that happened, but it did not fester into a national civil war. So between 1980 to 1990, the country began to change. The stability that the country enjoyed from 1847 to 1980 began to shift. And it became palpable after the 1985 elections that was considered a rigged elections by the late President Samuel Doe, who had turned from a military leader into a civilian and wanted to run the country continuously. Even though his initial promise was, once we stabilize things, we'll turn the country to a civilian rule. But after tasting power, which is always the case, he decided to run as a civilian president. And accordingly, the two main contenders, he and the late Jackson F. Doe, went to the elections. There were other folks, but they were the two main contenders. And it was considered widespread consideration that Jackson Doe won the elections, albeit, accordingly, it was rigged. So then, a military invasion, not a war and not a coup, but it was an invasion that took place on November 12, 1985. And what happened there? You know the story if you followed Liberia's history. Thomas G. Kwangba, who was the former commanding general of the armed forces, who was in exile, had come back to Liberia to oust President Doe, who was now a civilian president. And whatever happened. Matter of fact, he was not quite a civilian president, even though he was announced president. He had not gone, I believe, to inauguration because inauguration would have been in 1986 January. So he was still in the middle ground, military and civilian, but he was how would I put it, a winning candidate. So then that took place. It didn't destabilize the country. It was curbed. Things went back to normalcy after a few months because we had a short, period of curfew and all of that. And once things started to stabilize, we went back to the normal situation. So that we didn't have anything so major. Of course, there were other things happening like the Nimba raid and all of that. And then here comes Charles Tiller with the Civil War that started in 1989 from the border, and it took time to get to Monrovia. And imagine the destruction along the way, breaking down villages, breaking down towns, breaking down, all of the infrastructure. There has been civil wars around other places in the world, but the proportion by which we destroyed our country was unimaginable. Think about Rwanda. Rwanda had a civil war. I think what Rwanda's civil war comparable to ours was not infrastructure damage; it was lives that were taken. On the contrary, we took lives and at the same time, we destroyed every infrastructure. So then we broke down the institutions, the morals of the society, the care for one another, the, the way we lived, and all of the things that kept us, our core values as a country. All of those things were derailed, and we come down into an interim period where the peacekeeping force comes in to want to help to shape the course of action and bring stability and peace so that we could go back to a normalized situation. But the greed for power continued to persist, warring factions sprouting up from everywhere, and we continue to destroy the country. Then here comes the octopus. Electricity was in Monrovia before the octopus. But then comes the octopus with Charles Tiller, the same greed, wanting to get to the presidency by any cost. Brought octopus and caused serious, serious destruction. Destroyed the hydro plant, one of the most important facilities in the country. Then the octopus subsides and we hang around. Then here comes Mr. Tiller. He comes with a triumphant arrival in Monrovia to join the Council of State Government, where warring factions decided to ration our country, ration our resources, ration the institutions among themselves, the ordinary people, having dealt with the war from 1990 all the way, the struggles, the suffering, the decadence of the things decaying of the fabric of our society. Then the same evil people come back and they say they want to run us because it is the only way that they can compromise and cease fire. So ECOMOG steps back and hang on, and then the warring factions come in. And then they take our big institutions, the Ministry of Finance, the LPRC, the National Port Authority, and they share it among themselves. And all the wealth and the resources were put in pockets to fuel the military might. And the downtrodden masses remained desolate. The downtrodden masses remained the least in the country. And then we leave from that period, we go to April 6th. Another serious war destroyed Monrovia and the suburb. Even the United Nations and the non-profit organizations suffered so bad that vehicles of the United Nations, NGOs, were driven out of Monrovia into foreign borders. We saw people taking coal pots. We saw people looting everywhere. Brought the country to its knees, all because Charles Tiller still wanted to be president by all cost. Then April 6th subsides. We go to peace accord in Ghana, and we decide that, listen, for this to end, let's make this man president and let it be over. So Taylor is the first president, I believe, who will win such number at the polls, more than 75% of the polls, because back then the government was just the rule were rather one party, so it was not somebody running against themselves or with other people running against them, right? So the democratic election, the real democratic election, hmm, started with Doe, right? But Doe rigged that elections, and then come Taylor, and Taylor overwhelmingly won by 75%. So what happens here? Taylor wins by 75%. He comes to power. He doesn't do his work well. He claims he inherited a broken country. But these were the same people who were bragging that would destroy but would build it in no time. And I'm talking to you, the young people of the generation now, who don't understand what really happened to your country. And today you're running around the place just on the gloss of things, because everything is whitewashed around you. You have not really peeled off the whitewash from the wall and see what's underneath there. And that's what I'm trying to do right now as we discuss. So Taylor wins the elections. Now, they say he who lives by the gun dies by the gun. He came to power by force, and so other warring factions were still not satisfied. They went back to the bush and they came on him. So then what happens? You know the story of 2003, the Lord War. I was not in Liberia, but I saw it. I even had an interview on CNN where I was interviewed in Atlanta, and it was very bad. And then what happens? That war subsided after Taylor left Liberia. We had a short period of interim leadership with Udi Bryant, and then we decided enough is enough. We're going to go to elections. Overwhelmingly, the people say, you know what, politicians fail us. These people, they have hurt us so bad, so we want to put a soccer player in power. But the international community, looking at where the soccer player was, I'm talking about George Weah, and considering Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, who had built her platform in the international community, working in the United Nations and places, they found her to be the most credible one to lead the country. She had a Harvard background, and a United Nations background. And so, yes, let's give her the presidency. So Ellen comes. She decides to do it her way. She's always been that person. If people who work with her know it, she always thinks she's the biggest in the room. So she does it her way. In the process of doing it her way, what she forgot is the fabric of the country. What she also forgot was the youth of the country. What she also forgot was the structuring of the country. So then, in 12 years, mess took place. People say, oh, yeah, she was setting up, she was laying the blueprint up. But when you lay the blueprint up, then the blueprint should be laid in a way that the foundation is firm. Do not do whitewashing blueprint. Do not just do something because you want to appease the international community, because her government was heavily funded by international money. Even security was manned by international money. So 12 years, we had to deal with that. Then comes 2017. She decides she will not support her vice president. She wants to give it to the young people. So then the young people come. Joshua takes power. He said he's not a politician. The people force him there. He said it repeatedly. But once he tasted the gravy, the travel here and there, the private jet, the good lifestyle, he enjoyed it for 6 years. But those things were still there. They were existential. And that's what we are now seeing them to be like, oh, they're new. No, they were not new, and they are not new. The issue of alleyways, the issue of traffic, the issue of pedestrians selling on the sidewalk, the issue of no private sector jobs, all of these things, they were there. They were there. And nothing was done to address those things. So we wasted 20 years. So let me do the math for you. From 1980 to 1990 was 10 years. We had a destabilization, but to some degree, we remained stable during that period. We didn't destroy the country. The few development that we enjoyed under President Dole was there. Then Mr. Taylor comes from 1990 to 2005. I don't think Taylor built one infrastructure in that country compared to what he destroyed. Not one. I don't know of any national shrine that Taylor built in Liberia during his tenure and the heydays of the war. So we lose 15 years of national normalcy, of our values as a people, infrastructure. You know what it means for a train to get derailed from the track? Do you know how catastrophic that is? If you can imagine a speeding train leaves the track. Have you seen a train accident? That's what happened to Liberia between 1990 to 2005. So 10 years plus 15 years. 10 years plus 15 years. Okay? We give that to nothing. Then we turn around and give 12 years to Ellie and 6 years to George Weah, making it 18 years plus 2 now to Boycott. That's 20 years. And then we're asking questions about these things that I'm about to address. I just wanted to lay the platform, the stage, so you can understand that the matter here is so ingrained that even Boycott cannot address it. You bring Weah back, it would be worse. You put Cummings there, it would be worse. No matter what you do, Liberia has gotten to a place because of politics, because of ignorance, because of no love for country, no patriots. It doesn't matter who you put there. Corruption, greed for power and wealth. People want to be elite. People want to live above. It's not going to change. But it takes a heart to do that. So let's fix the reality here now. President Boyka came to power on the promise of rescuing the country. He said he will lift Liberians out of economic hardship and fix governance. Then he also promised good and experienced leadership. However, his administration's execution of development policies has sparked intense public backlash, civil protests, and accusations of lacking empathy. In many cases, the complaints come from how policies are implemented, the speed of results, and the economic pain ordinary people feel while reforms are happening. Critics and frustrated citizens argue that the government is prioritizing the image of development over the immediate survival of its people. Listen to that. The government is looking at image building, restoring our normal days, restoring our values. And people are criticizing that. People just want the country to remain a Gotham City. People want the country to look like Armageddon. People want the country to remain in a disarray so that they can pillage, so that they can have no account. That is why all of this argument continue to perseverate. So let's look at the demolition exercise. The demolition exercise, we all know, is to what? Reclaim public alleyways. Okay? Create right-of-ways. Do urban planning, road expansion, flood prevention, sanitation, national development, and enforce long delayed court rulings and land ownership. The administration authorized extensive demolition exercises across Monrovia and its environs. That is why. These are the reasons why. And this is the reason why demolition is going on, for the country to go back to normalcy, to normalcy. But people are saying, oh, the government is not empathetic. And it's not possible to be empathetic when you are cleaning up your house. If you are a hoarder, if you are a hoarder, and for those of you who probably don't understand what I mean, a hoarder is someone who doesn't throw anything away. They live in everything and they just keep stacking up. But if you have to clean your house by force so that you can have a healthy environment, there would be pain, there would be bad feelings because some of those things will have to go. So that's what development does. The Ghana that your people are running to every day did not get gloss from the skies. The skyscrapers or the new institutions and infrastructure in Ghana did not fall from the sky. They were not manna. People went through pain, people went through hurts as government expands development. The grievances here is that while most people understand the need for proper urban planning as they claim, the execution they say is heartless. So how is it heartless? There's nothing you can do about it. You live in the wrong place. You're in an alleyway. So of course, yes, the government has to do its work. And there's nothing they can do but to do what they're supposed to do. Okay? So So families and business owners, some of whom have occupied lands for decades. Imagine some of these people live in the alley, build homes when they should have not. They didn't pay taxes. They remain comfortable in those places. Some of them were first, second, and third generations. Or because a government that means business comes and then now it becomes heartless. Why people are complaining? They're complaining because there are no solid relocation plans or compensation frameworks for those displaced. So, you say no compensation plan, but you came and you sat in a place or you built in a place that you know was wrong. You built in a place that you know was wrong. How then you want to be compensated for violating the law? Tell me. You're driving recklessly, the police pull you over, and you say because your recklessness did not cause the death of someone, so the government should pay you for the police pull you over. Because that's what it sounds like to me, right? People are displaced with enough, they want people rather to be given enough notice. How long haven't we been talking from the Ellen era? Oh, yeah, leave the people. Oh, okay, yeah, let's put a mark there. We'll come do it. And then there's a delay. So when the ball cries wolf and there's no wolf, and the day the wolf comes, then what are you going to do? Because this is what it is. For years, we know that the government had made some compensation, some payback. And for many people to continue to, say that this is just a knee-jerk situation, or this just came out of the clear blue skies, that's not true. That's absolutely not true. The government did not just come out of the clear blue skies. All right? They have been telling you they were coming. And if did not do it, and Ellen did not do it, it doesn't mean Joe Boyka shouldn't do it. Joe Boyka said he comes back for image building. He comes to regain the nation's pride in the community of nations. So because this government is doing it, so is it bad? Is that what all of the complaints is about? People say they have not compensated them. There is nothing clear on the compensation. But you knew this has been going on for years, that one day the wolf will come. One day the wolf will come. So how do you reconcile that the wolf is here? The argument is, oh, for struggling citizens, development can feel unfair. Well, development will feel unfair. Because at the end of the day, it shouldn't be just one person's happiness that should derail everything else for the country. The public frustration is often about the development itself. Now, if Joe Barker was just breaking your house and you see anything happen, then you say, yeah. But all of the places they're clearing, you see people are acting. You see roads coming up. You see buildings going down. Infrastructure coming in place, right? So, on this matter, the critics they argue that what the government needs to do differently going forward is to stop the unexpected and poorly communicated bulldozer exercises. But the word poorly communicated bulldozer exercises is coming from opposition because this is not a new phenomenon. It didn't come from the skies. People knew that they were in the alleyways. People knew that they were in the waterways. People knew that they were doing things wrong for time immemorial. They come to put the X on your building, and because they didn't come with the bulldozer, so you say, "Oh no, wait not." So when you heard the people talking about bringing, I don't know how many yellow machines, what you were thinking? Oh, you thought our hammer the people coming break the house down. You didn't know that the yellow machine were coming for that purpose. So just the announcement that yellow machines were coming should have been a clue to you. Say, wait a minute, a lot of people serious. The paper is about to cause fire damage. You should have waken up. So before a single structure is touched, according to opposition, the government should map out designated relocation zones. But the government has done this. But people want to live in the city. Everybody wants to be in Monrovia, and it's not possible. Establish a clear, transparent compensation fund for those with legitimate claims. The government has done that. And provide a realistic grace period. How much more is the grace period? Let's come to the reality here. I've just given you a timeline of the destruction in our country. We have taken 18 years between Ellie and George Weah, and this stuff continues to go on. What grace period do you want when Joe Biden only has 6 years? So Joe Biden should sit down and fold his hand for the next 3 years before he break the first house down that is in the alleyway, or the first structure. Let me not call it house because some of those things were not houses in the alleyway. How about the people who go on the street to sell everywhere, that even pedestrian cannot walk on the sidewalk? They have to go on the asphalt to walk. That's what we're about to go to. Traffic restructuring. Why people are complaining. Can we have chaos in the city? Pimping riders everywhere, all on the main streets everywhere, hitting people and running, causing crime, jacking people bags, instead of being a transport program. So the government said, no, all of this cannot happen in the city. Let's restructure our traffic. Let's do something here differently. Keke and all of that. Have you seen how the keke can act? They don't wait for. There's nothing called regular driving in Monrovia. There's nothing called making sense driving in Monrovia. Those of us who live from abroad, it's just that because we're skilled, that is why sometimes we take the risk to drive among them. But there's nothing structured. So restructuring the traffic. Say, look, you know what? These other form of transportation don't belong in the city. Let's give the taxi cabs, the privilege to run around in the city and its outskirts, and let the pimping boys go all into the leeward counties and the keke go into the leeward counties and on the outskirts. Is that bad? Do you not know that in certain countries, certain form of transportation cannot go to certain places? Do you know that? So for us to become a developed nation, for us to then regain the sanity of our country to look like a place where people want to go and feel safe, we have to do restructuring. Traffic restructuring is critical as part of this development agenda, as part of this arrest agenda. Now, We can talk about the conflict, the lack of private sector of jobs, yes. The conflicting narratives, yeah. Because President Boyka said that there were 70,000 jobs. His vice president said that number doesn't represent. So, yes, there's a need for checking that data. The people want to see these jobs. We agree. Do not be deceptive. Do not create political deceptiveness. People need to see these jobs. And we don't think that there's a lot of public sector jobs private sector jobs in the country. And there will be more private sector jobs in the country if we stop the corruption from the inception of awarding contracts and business agreements to investors. Common Liberian man wants to come to Liberia to do investment in his own country. You create all these bottlenecks. So then, how can the man bring the business? You are depriving the ordinary people the opportunity to work. Everything can go in your pockets over there. National Investment Commission, Ministry of Mines and Energy, wherever, Commerce, Bureau of Concession, all of these places, public, private procurement, whatever you're calling it. All these places cannot continue to receive envelopes for things to happen. Ministry of State. Somebody doesn't have to bribe before they see the president. They're coming with good intention. So yes, private sector jobs are critical. And so that I would give to the opposition community and the critics. The government needs to do more. The government needs to open up and make it easier. The accessibility. Don't put bribes on the table because you kill the intent before it even begins. Then let's talk about the removal of petty traders from the streets. Is that wrong? Is that wrong? You literally turn every street in the country, everywhere, as a selling place. If they gave you a chance, they will be on the executive mansion or steps. So the president says, no, this is not the way Monrovia was. And all of this create more of the sanitation issues in the country. So as part of the city's beautification and traffic decongestion, let's get petty traders and street vendors from key thoroughfares and sidewalks in Monrovia. Clearing these streets create a cleaner image, provide proper order, public order, good sanitation, and free flow of traffic, and it creates modernization as image building for the country. What the people are grieving about, for a vast majority of the underprivileged Liberians, street selling is not a choice. It is their own safety nets and means of feeding their families. They say it is a survival economy. That's the argument. So everybody should just sell anywhere, any place, anytime, leave it dirty, and then they make that as their claim, right? It's not possible. So while people are complaining, the administration is being heavily criticized for putting the cart before the horse, removing vendors from the streets before constructing accessible, modernized market buildings, or providing micro loans pushes thousands of families deeper into poverty. The policy is viewed as a superficial attempt at image building that ignores the survival needs of ordinary citizens. Some asked, if formal jobs do exist, where should these people earn money? This creates tension between modernization goals and economic survival. So understand this. If everybody sells, who will buy? And if everybody sells everywhere, who will buy? That is why in modern development, and long before this era, this generation, this time, they decided that they would do what we call zoning so that certain places will be for commercial reasons and purposes, certain places will be for residential purposes. You cannot take the nightclub and set it right next to my window. You cannot put the church right next to my window. You cannot put public places in a residential area. That's how crimes increase, more sanitation issues, noise, littering, and all these things. So when these guys all on the sidewalk putting a whole lot of zinc shacks and stuff, when our international partners come, it's very demeaning. The government has built markets. How many people want to go into the market? How many people? They complain. They literally just want to be on the road. And because that has been encouraged since 2005 to now, or since 1997 when Taylor became president till now. Because I'm looking at era where our country fell apart. As I said, between 1980 to 1990, we still had semblance of stability, of moral values, moral conducts, irrespective of the leadership of the day. We maintained the structure, and then the war derailed it as of 1990 to 2005 because Taylor's presidency was still chaos. He had to fight wars at all fronts, right? So how do we not get back to normalcy if we continue to quarrel and cry for everything? Cost of living. But who said that the cost of living is not everywhere? Who said that? Are we on a different planet? Is Liberia on a different planet by herself? The cost of living is an issue everywhere. When you ask about fuel today, when you ask about the price of commodities today, and mind you, people are having children every second of the day. That's more mouths to feed. There are more needs coming on the table to be cared for, and so it's not going away. This is not to protect the government. This is not to project any support for President Bwaka and his administration. Like I said, I come here, I don't benefit anything. Me and nobody have any political talk, but I just want to call a spade and set the tunes so that we understand that all this complaining, this will not change if we don't have a president who means well. You take Bwaka from there, you put the next president who will come and say we're continuing the breaking down of those structure in the alleyway. You will say the same thing. Oh, we put we are back. You'll say the same thing. And if you put we are back and we are really wants development, he will do the same thing. He will break down and he will have to rebuild. But we can't continue to remain a laughing stock in the community of nations when our brothers are moving, fast pacing. You run to Ghana every day. You go there and you enjoy what you see. Then when you come back to Monrovia, you want to make it seem as though Monrovia does not deserve good. When did Liberians travel out of Liberia? For those of you who don't even know, when? Did Liberians ever leave Liberia or go anywhere in the sub-region? Do you remember before our civil war? Were we travelers? Did we long for anything? People were leaving their countries to come to Liberia for US dollars. People were leaving their country to come to JFK for medical or help because it was one of the referral hospitals in the West African sub-region. People used to leave from other countries to come to go to school at the University of Liberia. So where are those days? Are you saying that because of all of this mess created in the years of 1990 to now should remain, then why have a nation? Why have a nation? Because your house burned down, so you're not built to build again to sleep under a roof? What are you gonna do? You're gonna sit down outside and you have the resources to build because you're afraid the next house will burn down? Because that's the mindset I see here. That's the mindset I see here. And the very people who criticize and do those things, let's talk so. That PHP park that George we have built over there, let me give him hand clap. That your new hanging out spot. Everybody want to take picture at the PHP park. But let's just say squatters were all on that beach. And we have found that area to be an historic area that he could do the work. You'll be the same one to talk all kinds of things. But you're quick to go take picture. The new Moravia Mall now, you're all inside there. You ain't even got no money to go buy. First thing you ain't got in your purses and wallets. But you're all in there to take picture. You don't see the development, the need for it until it's manifested. So the truth here is this country has to improve. It has to change. And if it has to change, you have to swallow the bitter pill. There is no way Liberia will continue to remain this way, and you expect some of us, and I use the word some of us, it's a fact, some of us. And I'm not saying some of us in a condescending way that the people over there are not important, but those of us who have built platforms for ourselves, who have worked hard and want to come back home, we can't come back to that mess. We can't come back to that derailed society, to that disorganized place. We can't come back. We have to have a country that is built for all to want to come to and enjoy. Why you think Ghanaians are returning to Ghana? If Ghana was in the chaos it was in the early mid 70s to the early 80s, when the economy was so bad that they had to stand on line for sugar, for milk, for basic incentives. You think Ghanaians from the diaspora at that time would have wanted to go to Ghana? Many of the development going on in Liberia are done by diaspora Liberians because it's lawful country. So you can be on the grounds and trying to fight the government for doing what is right for all of us to enjoy. It is wrong. You knowingly know that the places you build your squatter place or your zinc shacks and stuff, it was not given to you. There was no rights given to you. You don't have no documents. You didn't pay taxes and all of that. We even start talking about tax collection for property. What you would do is another topic that I'm going to come here with. What do you people going to do when the government start to collect tax on every structure? What you would do? I can imagine. Because every day you claim you ain't got money, you ain't got this, but you're in the drinking spots. Every day you say you're suffering, but you're in the drinking spots. And you know many of you can live off of Facebook. You always want to show off. Your small achievement, you want to show it. You cooking cassava leaf, you want to show it. Everything you do, you want to show it. But yet you cry that you're suffering. So how can you be suffering but you on Facebook? Who paying for the data? Oh, internet free in Liberia? So if you can enjoy all of that, you're taking your picture, you're posting for everybody to see you all over the world. And you don't want to see the country develop? You can move from in front of what they call the hotel, Royal Grand Hotel. You can move from in front of Boulevard Hotel, that your photo shoot place. But if Boulevard Hotel was not there and looked prestigious, you would go there. The PHP Park that I just mentioned. Do you know the historical fact of that space? Do you know it was where the 13 men of the Toba government were executed, but probably the park being built there would change that mindset. At least it would not be what I would consider like a grave site. So a lot of you jumping over there all over that place, that's somewhere you don't even know the history of. So the point here is that for this country to move forward, bitter pills will have to be swallowed, and there's nothing a lot of you can do about it. The issue of fighting corruption. Yes, we think that the process is cherry picking. Yes, I agree. It's cherry picking. We've heard some noise about people regarding corruption, and yet they're still hanging around. And then we see the pressure on opposition, where the government is going after people from the opposition. So if it's good for Peter, it should be good for Paul. It has to happen. We can regain some of the things that we lost as a nation. That can go back into the pockets of the government. Perceived selective justice. Critics are claiming that the government investigates political opponents more aggressively than their allies. Okay? Some opposition leaders and activists accuse the administration of protecting loyalists while targeting critics. And that has to change under President Bouakai. Suspending officials who fail to declare assets is one way that the administration has addressed it. They continue to do some state auditing. They created an anti-corruption commission and an asset recovery team. But how are these people doing? How much of assets have they retained or regained? How much? So there's a serious problem here. We know about the War and Economic Crimes Court, but how far is this? How far is it? So communication is a problem. Communications is a problem for the government. Supporters argue that the administration reacts slowly to anger, right? Public anger, explains policy poorly and contradictory, and that's true. President Bouakai's administration has a problem with communication. And I stand here to say, yes, it is true. For instance, the initial messaging around the yellow machine. You and I know it was the big topic in the few days of his presidency, a few months of his presidency. One thing, it didn't go through the right process. He himself started to mango. Then we come to the presidential villas, misinformation, creating all these speculations here, where the money came from, how did it, and all of that. Then we have the Liberia-Guinea border dispute right now. All of the rumors around it. What really happened? I heard Yeka says that, in fact, Bouakai told Dumuya the land belongs to Guinea. Bouakai himself, when he went to Guinea. So if he said that and came back to Liberia and wept him off and came and fool us on our little small talk he had, that the people were going to be, everything was diplomatic, then that's a problem. So they need to call Yeke again to show proof, right? They need to call Yeke. He's not an ordinary man. It even makes it compelling for them to call him. Because he did say that Bouakai went in Dumuya ear and said, my man, don't worry about it. At your place here. We'll just delay on a diplomatic talk, but at your place. So it's a fact the government has poor communication strategy. The messaging always distorted. It is not coherent. The press secretary, the information minister, the state broadcaster, the leaner, everybody got something else. Everybody. And it's not helping, to stabilize the situation. So what should government do? Government should improve communication with ordinary citizens. The government needs to work on that weakness. Many African governments lose public trust because people feel disconnected from leadership. Bouakai could strengthen support. If he wants to go back into 2029. He could strengthen support by holding town hall meetings. You have Pinsville City Hall. You have other places. You have the National Stadium. You have the Invincible Park. You can hold town hall meetings. You can go to churches. Mr. President, your office is not just the executive mansion in your house. You can do a walking visit across places and hold town halls. Speak directly to your citizens regularly. Come out and talk to them. Be congruent. Be honest. Explain government delays. Tell them, say, this is why we haven't done this, but this is what we would do, and here's the timeline. Here's the data. Show facts. Hold your lieutenants you put in office to bring deliverables, so that when you hold that document, it is factual, it's been researched, it's been proven, so that you can then disseminate that information from you, the president. That is the way you can gain public trust. But you put people in places, they just give you numbers and you sit out there and read it. And then the fact check those numbers, they don't make sense. That's not for a person who is a 40-year leader in government. No. Even with my own time in government, I know that any document given to me, I must read it first before I even sign it. So that's the problem here. So you need to show measurable progress report to the people. So for instance, the RIA highway, what is happening there? Timeline. Detailed information should be given. The border dispute. So because the people are not making noise against, so it dies? No. It is your responsibility to make sure that you're informing the people. People tolerate hardship more when they feel respected and informed. If I don't know something, I will just keep going with speculation. If I don't know something, so you don't expect the people to assume and then you get mad. If you're giving them the clear picture, the clear messaging, they will understand why the hardship. They will understand why the demolition. They will understand why the petty traders shouldn't be in the street. They will understand, but your messaging, okay? Many citizens are not necessarily against reform. Let me talk so and talk so now. Not all of the Liberian people don't want the country to develop, but it is the way the message is being delivered. The deeper issues, right? For reform, people want it to be fair. It should be humane. It should be economically realistic, right? And beneficial to everybody. It shouldn't just be for only your own people. It shouldn't just be for the higher ups. So what the government should be doing? The government needs quick, high, visible wins that target the pockets of ordinary Liberians. This means establishing strict price controls and monitoring on essential commodities like rice, cooking oil, building material, fuel, those things. Utilizing the newly proposed National Food Assistance Agency to subsidize basic foods, expanding direct cash transfer programs to low-income families, and visibly tackling the crisis of electricity and pipe-borne water by securing transformer, solar plant. All of these things are critical. Rescue mission, you are not rescuing if your messaging is poor. You can't say one thing and it's completely contrary. So the takeaway here is Buckeye administration must change its approach from a top-down enforcement to a compassionate government. If the government pairs its push for law and order with a safety net for the poor, the public will view these changes not as threat to their survival, but as progress that they can be a part of. Remember, Mr. Boyka, remember, the people will be the one at the polls. The people will be the ones at the polls. And if you're not taking care of them now by the kinds of messages that is being given by your lieutenants, by the deliverables, the data, the facts, it will hurt you at the poll. So let me ask the question here. Should President Boyka run again? I want some people to tell me, should he run again, considering his age? I did small research. Joseph Boyka was born November 30th, 1944, which makes him 81 years old as of this 2026. Okay? Boyka will be 85 at the end of 2029. 85. Should Liberians give him a second term to lead the country until he turns 92? Hey, my people, age, they say that number, but sometimes it's visible. They say age that number, but sometimes it's visible. So whether Liberians should give Boyka a second term is something voters will decide based on his performance, the confidence they have in him, his communications, the way the messaging goes, and the direction the country goes. So it's not about age alone. At the same time, age is a legitimate political issue, and the opposition will use age against him, but messaging, deliverables, and the direction of the country. If Boyka were re-elected, he would indeed be among the oldest serving elected leaders in the world by the end of his second term. I'm saying 92 years old. Do you know what that means? So it will require stamina. It will require long-term good health. Stamina. But then also succession planning. Because he has to be responsive to a youthful population. Remember, Liberia's population is highly youthful. And then you have a president after 85, between 85 to 92. They say he already sleeping. Then how much? Then they just bring a recliner with comforter and pillow. That's what I would say. So, that's the question here. Should he be given a second term? And nobody is saying that age is nothing but a number. But again, as I said, with everything I've talked about, the old man has a solid development plan for the country. But he needs to hold his lieutenant to the throat before 2029. The messaging has to be honest, has to be congruent with data, with reports that can be fact checks. Everything must be honest. He's a spiritual man. He's a deacon. He's a statesman. I know sometimes people think that he thinks he's too top dog. But, my man, when a person is aged, and I'm not using the word old, when a person is aged and they're up there with wisdom, yes, sometimes they come across as tough. But the truth is, for President Boyka to go back in 2030, these things must be done. And it boils down to the communication piece. He needs to come to the people. It's not about big name again. It's not about incumbency. He saw what happened. His predecessor was the incumbent. And he won the elections narrowly. So that's my thought tonight. I just want to say thank you for joining me here. I want to quickly reiterate that development comes with tears. It comes with hard feelings. It's sometimes not empathetic. Imagine taking development as in the case of your house burning down. Take it that way. You build your house, you work so hard for, and fire guts it. Is the fire empathetic? The fire is not. It consumes it. So in development, feelings will be hurt. People will be displaced. People will be relocated. But it's also for the common good of the country. And so let us just be optimistic. Let us be poised. Let us be hopeful. and see our country change. I want to see Liberia change in my lifetime. I know what Liberia was. Not that I'm old, but just the fact, the short time that I saw it from my beginning time into that era before the war, it makes me say, Amen. Amen. When are we ever going to get back to the good old days? And it's possible. To many of you who are watching and who know what the good old days were, it's possible. It's possible. Thomas Awaji, it is possible. Flomo Livingstone, it is possible. Emmanuel Jackson, it is possible. So, let's be hopeful. It is possible. Let me quickly open the line so that if folks want to call, they can call. The numbers quickly to call is 404-272-2808. 404-272-2808. If you want to call and make a quick contribution, I'll be willing to hear from you. Um, I'm looking forward to at least one or two callers here. Come here. Let's talk a little bit. Please. The number is now posted 404-272-2808. This is the Volcano Shelton show. We come on Tuesdays, rather Thursday, not Tuesday, but Thursday. The issues room is Tuesday, but we come on Thursday, 7 p.m. This is where we have straight talk, no hard feelings. We erupt the facts, the good news. We do education here. We enlighten and we encourage. So again, please call if you can. I will give you a few more minutes, and if not, we'll end this uh, conversation tonight. So waiting for you guys to call. Pick up the phone. Call. Good evening. Watching from Kenya. Prayers and support for my orphanage here in Kenya, John McCorry. Well, we'll keep you in prayers, big guy. Let's see here. It's Gribble Jew. It's fine, Gribble Jew. Fine Gribble Jew is watching tonight. Welcome. Thank you for coming on. Flomo Livingstone, he says here, President Biden just submitted the war and economic to the legislature. Okay, so is the document to establish the court? All right. Thanks for sharing that. Um, People used to come to Liberia for jobs as well, according to Thomas Awaji. Yes, Thomas. In fact, how many Ghanaians were not all in the schools teaching? Jewel Choir says, real talk. Thank you, Miss Choir. Good to have you here watching the show tonight. Thanks for joining us here. Let me see what Thomas says here again. Mr. Awaji says people are complaining because they miss the lawlessness and chaos. Yeah. Oh, man, the country, man, the country. Let me see. Flo Livingstone say exactly. Most of them always say that the government is not ready. Yeah, that's what happens. They hang around and think that, because the government, one government doesn't do something, so the next government won't do it. And that's the problem we have. My brother Jerry Ken, watching from Liberia, says, you are right, brother. Thomas Awaji says, the people complain about everything. Seems like they relish in that life. Absolutely, brother. Absolutely. So, we're giving them an opportunity now, but they're scared to talk again. Senseless war. From Livingstone, people destroyed infrastructure. Now we're crying for electricity, road, water, and you name it. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, the biggest destroyer, Charles Tiller, man. The guy destroyed the place and they didn't do anything to, add value to the country. Emmanuel Jackson watching from Boston, Massachusetts. All right, guys. Thank you so much. I will close now and I'll say thank you for being there. We'll be back here on Thursday next week. However, Tuesday will be the issues room Alfonso, you and I will be here. We'll be discussing whatever trending in the country. But until then, I'd like to say thank you for being my guest tonight. If this is your first time, come back. Um, Help us to love us, like us, and share the link. Share our Facebook page, the Volcano Shelton Show, and VIE Shelton as well. I appreciate your viewership and I appreciate us growing together. Until then, have a pleasant night. This is Volcano Shelton. Bye.